My name is Camille Hartley. I'm 38, and for most of my life, I've been the one who doesn't crumble. The dependable daughter, the efficient executive, the woman who sent thank you cards and scheduled oil changes on time. I built a reputation on resilience, on grit, on staying when others walked away, until the morning I realized I had stayed too long. It wasn't dramatic. Not at first. It was the mail. A thick white envelope tucked between a furniture catalog and a bank statement. I almost didn't notice it. But when I saw the sender, County Recorder's Office, my hands stilled. It was addressed to both of us, which was already strange. We'd finalized our divorce 6 weeks earlier. There was nothing left, or so I thought. He got the house, the car, the golden retriever. I walked away with my business, my dignity, and the burning need to never speak his name again. But when I opened the envelope, everything stopped. It was a property transfer deed, parcel ID ending in 142 to 6, 0.94 acres, backlot access to 128 Cherry Hollow Drive, new owner, Weston J. Hartley. My breath caught. Cherry Hollow Drive was our old street. 128 was the house I had designed down to the copper handles and reclaimed wood floors, the house I had poured myself into. Weston, my ex-husband, got it in the divorce. But this? This was the empty lot directly behind it, the one we used to talk about buying one day to build a guest house or maybe even a pool cabana. He said it was unnecessary, that it was not worth the cost. Apparently, it was worth it now. He bought it 2 days after our divorce was finalized. I stared at the paper, my fingers trembling. There was no mistake. This wasn't a bank error. This wasn't a miscommunication. He had waited for the ink to dry on the divorce and then bought the one piece of land I had asked to keep. It had no structure, no plumbing, just overgrown brush and an old apple tree we used to picnic under when we first moved in. I had fought for that tree, for that space. I thought I was being sentimental. I thought I was asking for too much. So I let it go. He didn't. He waited. And then he claimed it. And I realized this wasn't about land. It was about control. I sat in my kitchen, now in a beige apartment with paper-thin walls and mismatched silverware, and stared at the deed like it was a verdict. It hit me then. He hadn't just wanted to leave. He wanted to win. Suddenly, every decision in our marriage felt sharper, like when he dismissed the full kitchen remodel I paid for as just your little project, like when he listed himself as head of household on tax forms, even though I made twice his income, like when he told our friends, Camille runs the business, I just try not to get in her way, like my ambition was a storm he tolerated. He didn't just want out. He wanted the story where he came out on top. I didn't cry that morning. I didn't scream. I didn't text him. I just stared at the paper until my coffee went cold and thought, I'm done being the woman who explains why she gave everything away just to keep the peace. That week I visited the lot. I parked down the hill and walked up the gravel trail, just like we used to. The apple tree was still there, branches thinning, roots exposed. The air smelled the same, earthy and clean. Except now there was a private property, no trespassing sign, and a small, fresh padlock on the rusted gate. I stood there for a long time, hand on the chain link, pulse steady, mind racing. It wasn't grief I felt. It wasn't rage either. It was clarity. He had taken what I built, what I dreamed, what I softened myself to create. And now? Now, I'd take what he didn't see coming. The next morning, I made 2 calls. The first, my lawyer. Can I legally purchase adjacent land if it doesn't violate any HOA or zoning restrictions? Absolutely, she said. Why? No reason, I replied. Just curious. The second, my realtor. Find me something near 128 Cherry Hollow Drive, I said. I don't care if it's raw land or an old barn. If it touches that property line, I want it. He chuckled. Planning a little friendly revenge? No, I said, with a smile I hadn't felt in months. Planning a masterpiece. A week later, I found it. 1.3 acres, backlot access, slight elevation, perfect for a view. Listed by an out-of-state owner who had inherited it and didn't want to deal with upkeep. I bought it in cash, didn't tell anyone, not even my sister. I didn't want this to be about applause or spite or look what I did. I wanted this to be about me. I had spent 10 years building a life that looked good on Instagram and made people at dinner parties say, "Wow, you're so lucky." I wasn't lucky. I was diligent. And I was done using that diligence to maintain someone else's illusion of power. This time, I'd build something entirely mine. I didn't go back to the lot right away. There was something sacred about letting it sit. Untouched, untroubled, quietly mine. While he played house on soil we once shared, I was sketching out something bigger. Not in brick and mortar just yet, but in vision. Every morning before work, I sat at my kitchen island with a legal pad. I drew columns and skylights. I jotted down the names of trees I wanted in the yard. I started a Pinterest board titled Camille 2.0 and saved photos of modern mansions with glass walls and libraries with hidden doors. I wasn't designing a house. I was designing independence. Meanwhile, Weston's renovations started. I watched from a distance, quietly amused as construction trucks arrived to expand the deck, rip out the tile I had chosen by hand, paint over the walls I'd once loved. He was erasing me, and I was letting him, because I had something better now, a blank slate. I met with an architect that spring. Her name was Lucia, and she walked the property with me in hiking boots and a leather sketchbook. She asked questions no man ever had. What do you want to feel when you come home? Not what should it look like. Not what will add resale value. But how do you want to feel? I told her, safe, seen, expansive. She nodded and began to draw. While Lucia mapped out my future, I started tying up the last remnants of my past. I took my name off the shared car loan, closed our joint storage unit. I returned his mother's heirloom vase that had somehow landed in my moving boxes. I sent it without a note. Let him draw his own conclusions. He didn't contact me. I didn't expect him to. He had the house, after all. But what he didn't realize is that a house is only a trophy when someone else wants it, when someone else mourns its loss. I didn't. I was too busy dreaming up the mansion behind his memories. The first time I saw the foundation poured, I cried, not out of sadness, out of validation. Because somewhere between the divorce decree and the blueprints, I had redefined what it meant to win. It wasn't taking something from someone. It was building something so audaciously yours that no one else could shrink it. That summer, I visited the site every Sunday. Lucia became more than my architect. She became a mirror, a witness to the version of me that no longer apologized for dreaming big. She brought me swatches and asked me if I wanted to play or to impress. Play, I said, almost laughing. So we did. Secret garden nooks, a reading loft with a velvet chaise, an outdoor bathtub under the stars. This house would not be modest because I wasn't shrinking anymore. My sister came to visit in July. We sat on the unfinished patio, hard hats on, drinking lemonade like kids in a treehouse. She looked around, wide-eyed. "Do you ever feel like this is too much?" I didn't flinch. "No, I think I've spent my whole life trying to be just enough for everyone else. This is the first time I'm asking what I want." She smiled. "It suits you." And I believed her. Around that time, Weston texted. Just a single line. "Saw the foundation. You always did think big." I didn't reply, because he was right, and he never made room for that. The thing about building from scratch is that every beam becomes a declaration, every window a decision. And this time, no one was interrupting me mid-sentence. The mansion rose, inch by inch, room by room. My future took shape as he faded into the background, a silhouette in a house he only thought he wanted. He had the past, but I was building the view. By fall, the walls were up. I walked through them barefoot one early morning. The drywall smelled like promise. The silence hummed with potential. I could see my life here. Wine-stained dinner parties, quiet mornings with books and bad coffee, nights with no one asking me to tone it down. A home, not to prove anything, but to finally inhabit myself. Outside, the tree we planted in our first year of marriage, the one he cut down to expand his deck, stood only in memory. But a new tree was coming. Right at the center of the courtyard, a fire maple. Because now, I burn brighter. It wasn't until the wiring phase that I broke. Lucia and I had been going room by room, placing switches, marking outlets. I had asked for a hidden stereo system, one that could play soft jazz through the whole house, like an ambient hug. She nodded, amused, then paused in the middle of the main hallway. "This will be the loudest silence you've ever lived in," she said. I tilted my head. "What do you mean?" She smiled, kind but firm. "When this place is done, it won't have anyone else's footsteps. No echoes of arguments or laughter from someone else. Just you." I nodded again. But something inside me tugged, a stitch I thought had healed. Because she was right. This house was full of me, and only me, and I hadn't lived like that. Ever. That night, I couldn't sleep. I walked through the sublet in circles. I opened old notebooks, old journals, looking for something, anything, that could explain the sudden wave of loneliness crashing against the bones of my newfound freedom. And there it was, a page from a college diary dated February 14th. Be cool. Be easy. Don't ask for too much. Don't expect flowers. Just be someone worth staying with. I stared at that line until it blurred. Even back then, I was editing myself, smoothing myself into something more digestible. And Weston? He didn't demand that, but he benefited from it. The truth hit me like drywall dust in the lungs. I had been shrinking since before he ever asked me to. I called my friend Nora the next day. She was one of the few people who had known me before the marriage, before the neatness, before the curated life. "I'm spiraling," I told her, "not because I want him back, but because I'm scared I never fully existed without someone else to orbit." She didn't flinch. "That's not spiraling. That's waking up." I sniffled. "Why does it hurt?" "Because you thought being independent meant being invincible. It doesn't. It just means being real, even when real is raw." The mansion reached its framing inspection. We were on track for the March move-in, but I was still wrestling with ghosts, so I did something reckless. I invited Weston's sister to coffee. Rachel had always been kind to me, even in the divorce. She sent me a message once that read, "I hope you find joy again, and not the polite kind." Now, across from me at the cafe, she looked surprised, but she didn't say no. "I just need clarity," I told her. "Not gossip, not revenge, just truth." She sipped her latte. Then she said something I didn't expect. "You were too strong for him." I blinked. "What?" "Not too much," she clarified. "Just whole. Weston's never been good with women who don't need him to fix something." I stared at the foam on my cappuccino. "He said you didn't laugh anymore," she added. "That the house felt like a performance." My throat tightened. "I didn't laugh because I felt invisible." She nodded. "I know. He just didn't have the tools." I didn't cry, but I left with a strange sort of peace. Weston hadn't left me because I was broken. He had left because I wasn't. That weekend, I visited the house site again. It had walls now, rooms, real volume and space. I stood in the kitchen and imagined hosting brunch. I stood in the bedroom and imagined throwing open the curtains to morning light, that belonged to no one else. In the closet, I sat down, just to breathe, and I heard myself whisper, "I am not hard to live with." Then louder, "I was just too quiet in the places I should have roared." That's when I knew. The final confrontation wouldn't be with Weston, it would be with me. The me who kept choosing likability over authenticity. The me who thought being a great partner meant being invisible. The me who was so terrified of being alone, she'd built an entire life as someone else's accessory. I went home that night and deleted every trace of our wedding photos. Not out of rage, out of relief. Because I wasn't erasing history. I was making room. Room for a life with corners I didn't sand down, with laughter that didn't wait for permission. Room for the woman who wasn't afraid of the silence anymore. Because now I was building something even louder. Belonging. The first time I laughed, really laughed, inside the new house, it surprised me. Lucia had dropped a paint bucket. It splattered across the floor like modern art, shocking white against the hardwood. She stood there mortified, but I cracked up. Loud, unguarded, ridiculous laughter. We both froze. Then she started laughing too. It wasn't funny, not really, but it was human. I realized I hadn't heard that sound in years. That moment stayed with me, because it wasn't just about a spill. It was about release, permission, joy without scripting. I told Lucia later that week. I used to laugh like that all the time. Before I became someone's wife, before I became the composed one. She looked at me carefully. "And who do you want to be now?" "I don't know. Just someone who doesn't hold her breath in her own home." The house was nearly finished. Final inspections were scheduled. Furniture was being delivered. But more than that, I had started seeing the structure not just as shelter, but as symbol. Every window, every door, every line of light, it all said, "You belong here. Just you." But before I could truly claim that space, I had one more thing to do. I needed to face Weston, not to rekindle, not to fight, but to release. I sent him a short message. "Would you be open to one final conversation?" He replied 2 hours later. "Okay. Where?" We met at the park near our old house, neutral ground. He looked thinner, older, or maybe just more tired. "I thought you hated me," he said after a moment. I shook my head. "I didn't. I just hated how small I let myself become around you." He looked startled. "You didn't do it alone," I added. "I volunteered for that role. I choreographed my own silence." He rubbed his hands. "I didn't know how to meet you at your level. You always seemed so ahead. That's not an excuse." He nodded. "No, but it's a truth." We sat in silence. "I bought the land behind the house," I told him. "Built something new." His eyebrows lifted. "Seriously?" "Seriously." He gave a soft, surprised laugh. "Of course you did." It wasn't bitter, just honest. Then he looked at me. "Are you happy?" "I'm becoming," I said. He nodded slowly. "Good." I stood. "We don't need to do this again, but I needed to tell you, thank you." "For what?" "For leaving. Because if you hadn't, I never would have realized how much I gave away just to keep peace." He didn't argue. He didn't apologize. He just let me walk away. And I didn't look back. The night before move-in, I invited my parents to tour the new house. They had taken the divorce hard. My mother especially saw it as a failure, a reflection. We hadn't really talked about it. As I guided them through the entryway and into the living room with its tall windows and warm wood accents, I saw something shift in her eyes. "This is," she said, trailing off. "It's mine," I finished, completely. She reached for my hand. "I'm proud of you." And I'm sorry I didn't say that enough before. I squeezed her fingers. It's okay. I didn't say it to myself either. Later, as they left, my dad turned back and said, "This feels like a place built for real life, not just show." That hit me, because he was right. I wasn't building for performance anymore. I was building for presence. On move-in day, I did something small but significant. I hung a photo in the entryway, not of Weston, not of us, but of me, laughing, mid-throw of a water balloon during a summer barbecue years ago. Pre-marriage, pre-curation, pure. It was my reminder. That woman still exists, and she runs this place now. I spent the first night on the floor with a glass of wine, staring at the ceiling and letting the quiet settle. Not the hollow quiet of absence, the sacred quiet of peace. A week later, I hosted a dinner, just 6 women. No agenda, no forced conversation, just food, warmth, and presence. One of them asked, "Do you ever miss him?" I paused. Sometimes, but not in the way you think. I miss the version of me who believed I had to earn love. Because she was loyal, she was determined. She just didn't know she was already enough. And everyone nodded, because they had her inside them too. That's when I knew this was community, not born from crisis, but from clarity. The next morning I journaled. I used to think my life would feel full when someone else gave me a reason to exhale. Now I know the only breath that saves you is your own. That was the blueprint all along, not the house, the woman building it. 1 year later, I stood barefoot on the balcony of my own home, holding a mug of chamomile tea as dawn cracked open over the hills. The mansion, though I still hesitated to call it that, was finally finished. Lived in, worn in, mine. The stone had weathered rain and sun. The garden bloomed wild with lavender and lemon balm, and the back fence, the one facing Weston's house, now held a mural. Painted in deep blues and golds, it said only this: "I built this for me." The housewarming party had come and gone months earlier. Friends from all seasons of life had filled the rooms with laughter, carried mismatched plates of food, danced barefoot in the foyer. Rachel came down from Portland. Lucia brought fresh bread. My mother brought my childhood books, newly dusted. My father had even fixed the leaky sink I'd been ignoring. At one point, someone spilled red wine on the stairs. No one panicked. We laughed, cleaned it, kept dancing. I still saw Weston sometimes. Our schedules overlapped at the same coffee shop. Once or twice, we nodded politely from across the room. We were different now. Not enemies, not strangers, just echoes. He never saw the mural, or if he did, he never mentioned it. And that felt right. I began taking clients again, not out of necessity, but desire. Women who wanted to build spaces that weren't just beautiful, but true. Women in transition. Women who were reclaiming their own blueprints. I called my new firm Second Foundation, because that's what this was. A second self laid with intention, built with courage. In early spring, I was invited to speak at a women's conference in San Diego. The topic, Designing from Within. I told the story, not with bitterness, not with spectacle, just truth. I thought losing the house meant losing everything. I didn't realize it would be the first time I got to build without shrinking. People cried, laughed. One woman came up afterward and said, "You gave me permission to leave a relationship where I stopped laughing." I hugged her. No wisdom, no advice, just recognition. In May, Lucia got engaged. She asked me to be her maid of honor. "Because you reminded me I could still believe in things," she said. The wedding was small and absurdly beautiful, held on the edge of the canyon, wildflowers spilling from every table. Her dress was embroidered with forget-me-nots. Her vows made everyone cry. After, we danced barefoot under string lights. I caught my reflection in the glass of the patio doors, and I didn't flinch. Rachel visited in July. We sat by the fire pit until 2 a.m., talking about everything and nothing. She toasted me with marshmallow sticky fingers. To the woman who bought the land behind the man who doubted her and built a fucking fortress. I laughed until I choked. A few weeks later, my mother surprised me with a photo album. She had collected pictures from my childhood, my marriage, and now, pages of smiles, strained and genuine, of places I'd lived, people I'd loved, and moments I had tried to forget. On the inside cover she had written, "You've always known how to build a life. I'm just glad you finally made one you can live in." By fall, I started dating again. Nothing serious, just coffee, conversations, curiosity. I had nothing to prove, no timeline, just one rule. Don't build around someone else's silence. One rainy Sunday, I sat on my living room floor, candle lit, feet in socks, journal in hand. I wrote, "It was never about the house or the land. It was about seeing what I was capable of when no one else was narrating my worth." He took the house in the divorce, so I bought the land behind it and built a life so luminous it didn't need revenge to be visible. It just needed me. I published the essay online under a pseudonym. Within a week, it had over 1 million views. Comments flooded in. "I just left my husband of 14 years. Your story is the first thing that made me feel proud instead of broken. I didn't know it was possible to start over after 40. Thank you for showing me." Can I build my own mansion too? My answer was always the same. Yes, and you don't need blueprints, you just need truth. A year to the day after I moved in, I threw a party. No theme, no catering, just people who had helped me come back to myself. We ate, sang, spilled things. Someone brought a guitar. Someone else lit sparklers. Rachel gave another toast, this one simpler. "To the blueprint you only find when the old foundation cracks." We clinked glasses, and I finally understood. I didn't build a mansion to prove anything. I built it because I was finally done asking for space in someone else's. The night ended quietly. Just me, barefoot again, twinkle lights dimming. I looked out the window at the old house beyond the hill. No lights on, no ghosts left, just a chapter. And this one? Mine. Forever. Have you ever realized the thing you thought was a loss was actually your life making room for something better? Have you ever built a version of yourself no one saw coming? Share your story in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe if this one made you feel seen.